All right. Well, Georgia kicks the shit out of Alabama tonight in Atlanta in the SEC championship. They get their revenge from the matchup earlier in the year in Sanford Stadium. Kirby Smart had these boys ready to play, and it showed. I'm going to give y'all my assessment of this game, my instant reaction here in this video. If you're new here, please subscribe to The Era with Brian Gregory. I really appreciate all of you on here, and we're building this community up brick by brick. And we have some exciting stuff coming with the CFP looming here. Selection Sunday coming tomorrow. We're going live for that as well. So hit that subscribe button. Join the era. We'd really appreciate it. So let's get into this game. Here's the one thing I have to say about Georgia. All right. Great teams evolve and get better as the year goes on. They find a second gear. If you don't have a second gear as a team, as an organization, you will always be stagnant. That's Alabama right now. If you're an organization, you can find that second gear. You can get better each and every single week. You can win championships. That's Georgia. That's what you're looking at with the Bulldogs right now. Early in the season, Georgia's run game was so-so. In the trenches, Georgia was so-so. But, man, as the weeks went on, that defensive line found its rhythm. They found that run game once again with Nate Frazier. He's been great this year. And mind you, tonight, Georgia was missing their starting center. They're missing their starting center, and Alabama still couldn't get a push with their defensive line. Gunnar Stockton, clean pocket all night long, had running lanes open for Nate Frazier. They found a way to get better each and every single week. You see it with the NFL. I mean, how many times have you seen it in the past with the Kansas City Chiefs? Granted, you're not seeing it this year, but they start the year 3-4 or something like that. The passing game is off. Their corners are getting burnt. And they make some adjustments as the year goes on because they have a smart coach in Andy Reid. All of a sudden, you turn the corner into December, and they're looking like the same old Chiefs. Well, it's the same exact ideology that's taking place right now with Georgia. We saw some up and downs early in the season. I mean, you remember that Tennessee game when Joey Aguilar was absolutely burning them in the first quarter. That defense has gotten so tight and so much better now that you're never going to see that again. Georgia learned from that game. They went back. They looked at film. They made corrections. Offense was stagnant against Alabama. Receivers not getting separation. Run game struggled. Gunnar Stockton looked mid. They've now evolved beyond that. Georgia had underdeveloped components of their team back in September. But you turn the corner into November, and I was saying a few weeks ago, Georgia looks like one of the hottest teams in the country right now. I had some people argue me on it, but I'm standing 10 toes down. This is one of the best teams in the country. This could be the best team in the country. I mean, Ohio State really hasn't been tested much this year. Georgia has, right? Tennessee, Ole Miss, the list goes on. This is a battle-tested team, and what I love about this Georgia team right now is that they're hungry. They want more. You know, I made a video about the Houston Texans a few days ago. It's doing very well. Welcome all Texans fans and Houston subscribers to the channel. I really appreciate that as well. But I said about the Texans. They're peaking at the right time. And Georgia is absolutely 100% peaking at the right time right now. And that's what it takes to win championships. You saw with Ohio State last year, peaked at the right time, got hot at the right time, was always a great team, but they tap into their very best, their optimal potential when it meant the most. I think that could very well be Georgia this year. And what I loved, I was watching the post game, the trophy celebration with Kirby Smart and the boys, and what stood out to me was when Kirby Smart was asked, "Are you all going to practice tonight?" And he's like, "What do you boys want?" Some of them thought about it. Some of them wanted more. They just want to keep pushing. They want to keep getting better. That's the standard right now. That's the mentality. They have an insatiable appetite to win. It's like Vince McMahon says he has an insatiable appetite for life and he wants more. Or I should say more. Georgia has an insatiable appetite to win, and they want more right now. Always got to put my WWE references in there. They said they could practice tomorrow. They could practice on Monday. They just want to keep going, and that speaks to the character and the fabric of this team. Wouldn't expect anything less from a Kirby Smart team. They were dialed in, especially in the trenches tonight. Great protection on offense, getting pressure on defense all night long. Georgia made crucial stops when they had to. They always seemed to be moving the ball. They would fall forward. When I thought they'd get a 3-yard gain, it turned into a 9-yard gain. I mean, they were just moving the ball downfield with ease. My boy Alex Chase in here commented, embarrassing game for Alabama. We don't deserve the playoffs. We're going to talk about that. We talk about winners first on the show here. So we're going to continue to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs and the performance that they put on tonight. I mean, Gunnar Stockton did what he had to do. 20 for 26, 156 passing yards, 3 touchdown passes. Zachariah Branch and Dylan Bell getting great separation. Dylan Bell's had kind of a quiet year this year, but tonight he was getting great separation. And he was a monumental part of Georgia's game plan in beating Alabama. But this is a great team right here. This is a well-coached team. Georgia could very well be your national champion. You can tell that they took that Alabama game back in September personally. I mean, Kirby was asked about it, and he kind of brushed off the question. But you know that they took that late September game very personally by the way that they played tonight. And they got their revenge. This thing was never close. I think that's the blocked punt in the first quarter was also a huge momentum swinger because at the beginning, the climate of this game, the flow of the game felt very much like the matchup in Athens. Time of possession, drawn out drives, kind of even time of possession. And then once Georgia got that blocked punt, got that great field position, they put it in for 7. That's what you got to do. When you get a break like that, you've got to get 7. And when Georgia got opportunities tonight, they capitalized on them. That is another sign. That is another characteristic of a great team. But it was that block punts that gave this team energy. And quite honestly, they just never looked back. Their energy was completely different from that point on. Alabama's energy was completely different from that point on. They were full of energy, and Alabama was mopey. And I'm going to talk about sideline body language. I mean, Ty Simpson looked panicked all night long. Ryan Williams looked lost. Killing the board looked like he had no pulse. Kirby was yelling at guys for getting penalties when they were up 28-7. That's Nick Saban type shit. He learned from the best. I'm not surprised. That's Kirby. That's part of his DNA. That's why I love the guy. That's why he still is the best coach in college football, regardless of what people say. Georgia looked fired up. They had energy. They had passion at the right time. That's what championship teams are built of. So, great win for Georgia. Will be interesting to see how the momentum continues to build for the Bulldogs. But let's talk about Alabama for a second here. Like I said, sometimes you got to tip your cap when you play a great team. Sometimes that's the case. And Georgia was the better team today. Georgia outclassed Alabama. And so, as a Bama fan, for that, I tip my cap to the Bulldogs. Great, complete performance of them. Full quarters of sustained intensity, something that I'm still waiting to see out of Alabama this year that we've now seen multiple times out of Georgia. And that's why Georgia's a far better team right now. There's something that we always say on this show. Success starts in the trenches. I'm going to make some damn t-shirts. I think they're going to sell well. Success starts in the trenches. I can't say it enough. I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face. And I go on social media and I'm looking at all the comments from Alabama fans on social media posts of my own. And there's 2 things I keep seeing. Tie. Put Keelan Russell in. Our run game. Did Ty make bad throws tonight? Yes. Did Ty get flustered very quickly and have that Dak Prescott panic look on his face? Absolutely. Was it all completely his fault? No. I'm going to explain. Is the run game bad? Yes. I expected more out of A.K. Deer tonight. I expected more out of Daniel Hill tonight. But your offense is nothing without an offensive line. And for the guys that Alabama has on this offensive line, the output, the performance tonight was absolutely pathetic. And I cannot emphasize that enough. Alabama has always been an organization, a program built on great offensive line and defensive line play. That's the way it always was in the Nick Saban years. That's the way it always was in the Bear Bryant years. That's what Alabama's made of, is great play in the trenches, getting a push in the trenches, because like I say, success starts in the trenches. And so when I hear people say, oh, tie this, the run game that, they can't do anything. Watch the plays tonight. Go back and watch the plays tonight. Ty has 3 white jerseys in his face on every play. He's getting pressured. He's getting flustered. His body clock is now fast. It's now keyed up, and he's having to react quickly because he's being chased around the field. I mean, I felt like I was watching Super Bowl, what was it, 55 with the Bucs and Chiefs 2020 all over again. We got Patrick Mahomes, number 15 as well, running all over the field, spinning around, trying to find some space to get rid of the ball and find open receiver, make a good pass, make a good read. Ty struggled to do that all night tonight. And I'm not even trying to make excuses for the guy, but that's the reality. You cannot have a complete performance as a quarterback if you don't have protection, if you don't have a clean pocket. And Ty didn't all night tonight. This running back room tonight, Daniel Hill averaging 2.8 yards a carry. A.K. Deer, 3.3. Daniel Hill had 11 yards. A.K. Deer had 10 yards. That's pathetic. That's awful. You're not going to win a playoff game. You'll struggle with James Madison with those kinds of numbers. Ty Simpson, 19 for 39. Again, that's inexcusable. That's a very, very, very inefficient night. Another costly interception that gave the opponents confidence, that gave them a breath of fresh air. You can't afford that either. But you will not go far. I mean, this is exactly the same as the NFL. You know, I made the video about the Texans the other day, made about the Broncos a few weeks ago. Those teams focus on the trenches and let everything else develop around it, because that truly is the most important component of any football team out there. You know, I've heard this ideology the past couple of years. You're only as good as your starting quarterback. You're only as good as your starting quarterback. Well, then why did Eli Manning win 2 Super Bowls? His touchdown-interception ratio is 1-to-1. Why did he win 2 Super Bowls? Because his offensive line is great. Because his defensive line is great. That's what the Giants invested in. And that's what will get you to advance in the playoffs, in the NFL, and in college. The same applies here. Alabama is not going to go far in the playoffs, y'all. I'm going to call it as it is. I'm saying as an Alabama fan right now, I always like to believe in my team. I always like to have confidence in my team, but I'm also a realist about my team. This team will not go beyond the second round of the playoffs. It will not go beyond the quarterfinals with the offensive line play that it has right now. You can't establish the run game. You can't provide a clean pocket for Ty. You're going nowhere. Notre Dame will get a push on you. Oregon will get a push on you. Ohio State will get a push on you, and so will Texas A&M. Success starts in the trenches, and Alabama struggles mightily with it. Once again, Alabama just not having a second gear, not making adjustments at halftime. I've seen that a lot this year. I saw that in the second half tonight as well. That defensively, just not blitzing a lot, not generating pressure at all. Gunnar Stockton was scot-free and just could make easy, well-advised decisions all night. I mean, there's really nothing more that I have to say about all of this besides the trenches. You're only as good as your protection. And Alabama fell very short in that department tonight. And at this point in the season, it's too late to fix that. If it was September, I'd be like, okay, maybe they can coach us up a little bit. But if you're December, your offensive line, your defensive line, it's as good as it's going to be. Let's talk about the receivers a little bit. Jeremy Bernard was consistent as always, 6 receptions, 62 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, he was the bright point per usual. But then you have a running back, Daniel Hill, as your second highest receiver with 50 yards. Caleb Edwards, 42. Ryan Williams, 2 receptions. And Isaiah Horton was radio silent after the week that he had against Auburn last week. And their game plan with Auburn was going to rely around Isaiah Horton. We knew that, and not as much this week. But they wanted to incorporate Ryan Williams more into it this week, and wasn't as much of a factor. So I really don't know what that situation is going to be. It'll be interesting to see how all of that unfolds. But if you're looking at Alabama here, and I've been saying this since the South Carolina game, I'm just not seeing complete performances from start to finish. That was the great thing about Nick Saban coach teams. And, I'm not going to go on the rabbit hole of comparing Kalen DeBoer and Nick Saban because I'll just be wasting my time. I'll be wasting y'all's time with that. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But if you want to compete in the CFP, you've got to play a complete game from start to finish. Sustained intensity, consistent performance, offense, defense, from start to finish. I haven't seen that out of Alabama all season long. Even your great wins, Georgia, Tennessee, there were still stagnant quarters. There were stagnant halves. Georgia didn't miss a beat tonight, and that's what it requires to go far in the playoffs. And there's something about this Alabama team that it's just not gelling completely as a unit. There's a lot of talent on this team. It has the second highest blue chip ratio in the nation because of the talent composite that it has. Talent is not the issue with this team. It's chemistry. Alabama's chemistry is off. And that's something that, as a coaching staff, that's out of your control. I mean, your unit is either going to have chemistry or it's not. I remember hearing John Calipari talk about that years ago when he had a Kentucky team full of 5-stars. It just wasn't gelling. He had far less talented teams gel and go to Final Four or go to national championships. Alabama in the past, I think, has had less talented teams than this. And they've gone farther. The chemistry was there. It's, at the end of the day, it's all about chemistry. You either have it or you don't. And this team is just not gelling completely. There's bright spots and there's low points. But at times, the low points, like your offensive line, your run game, I think the defensive line underperforms a lot. The defense is great at generating turnovers, especially in clutch times. But the push is not consistent. They don't have that standout edge rusher like they've had in past years. I've seen great things out of Yanze Pierre, but I haven't seen consistent things out of Alabama's defensive line. And so when it comes to a full body of work, playing a complete game, I just haven't seen it out of Alabama. And they've had to escape some games against some pretty mid teams. The South Carolina game, Alabama probably should have lost that thing. Auburn, Alabama had to pull the rabbit out of the hat with that. Again, and I saw Kalen DeBoer's staff get outcoached by a team with an interim head coaching staff. LSU, a team that pretty much given up for the year. Alabama pretty much tried to give the game to them. And then Oklahoma, 3 turnovers, cost that game. So very talented team, just sloppy football. And I like to have confidence in my team. I love this team. I love these guys. I work with a lot of these guys when I interned with player development with the team back in 2023. Loved a lot of the guys on this team. But to give an honest assessment right now, until I see better play out of the trenches, this team has a ceiling at the CFP semifinals. And speaking of CFP, that's what I'm going to end this video with here. Because I'm sure a lot of y'all are wondering, do I think that Alabama deserves to be in the playoffs or not? Well, I'm going to give my honest, objective opinion here right now for y'all. If Alabama gets let in, I wouldn't be opposed. If Alabama gets left out, I wouldn't be opposed. I wouldn't be outraged. The committee intentionally put Alabama above Notre Dame in this week's poll because they wanted to give Alabama a cushion. Because They wanted the optics to be that Alabama has their spot secured in the CFP. But I feel like that move in Alabama being secured in the CFP field is also contingent on not getting blown out tonight. They got destroyed. And they look terrible. I mean, there honestly wasn't a facet of this team tonight that looked even remotely good. Like, I can't even look at Alabama's performance, their body of work tonight, and say, oh, well, that was a bright spot. Oh, that looked good. Pretty much every single player wearing crimson today underperformed, was bad. Offensive line, run game, Ty Simpson, receivers, defensive line, everything. Secondary was just mid today. Secondary is getting blown up today. And so when you look at Alabama's performance today and how individual players played, if Alabama or if the CFP committee is to move Notre Dame and Miami above Alabama, as a Bama fan even, I'm not going to be outraged because Alabama dug their grave tonight. All you had to do is keep this in close. Even if you lost 28-21 or even 28-17, you'd still be a lock right now. And if you got let out, I would be outraged. But 28-7, one of the worst performances I've seen out of Alabama probably since 2007. Yeah. If you leave Alabama out and you want to put Notre Dame and Miami in just so that controversy doesn't spread, I don't think you're going to outrage people. Because if you're the CFP right now, as a business, as an organization, you want to cover your ass, because this Notre Dame Miami thing could blow up. You didn't want to punish Alabama for playing in a conference championship and losing, and I get that, because if you do punish them, then conferences could be inclined to cancel conference championships, and that'll cost leagues a lot of money when it comes to corporate partnerships. That's a huge revenue flow that's just going to be cut off. That's just going to be canceled. That's a nightmare for those conferences, and you don't want that. But on the flip side of the coin, if you leave Miami out, there is a chance that teams are going to start to cancel these head-to-heads at the beginning of the season, because at the end of the day, what value does it have? You're Miami. You did everything you had to do for that game, preparing for it physically, logistically, everything. You went out on the field. You played 4 quarters. You really, really quieted Notre Dame. You won that game fair and square. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. So teams are going to look at that, and Miami look at that and say, "Oh, well, why don't we just play FIU that week and get a free win? We won't get penalized for it. We got penalized for playing Notre Dame and then losing 2 other games." And those early season matchups, and go look at the ratings. Go look at what's Notre Dame, Texas A&M brought in. Go look at what Alabama, Florida State brought in. Go look at what Ohio State, Texas brought in. Those ratings were incredible. So TV networks don't want to see that get canceled. This, at the end of the day, this all comes down to money. This all comes down to revenue flow, revenue generation. So there's some risky moves here, but if you're the CFP, you've got to weigh out the risks. If you leave Alabama out, you can still cover your ass with Notre Dame and Miami. And I don't think realistic people will be outraged by leaving Alabama out. I'm an Alabama fan, and I wouldn't be outraged if they got left out after today, after 3 turnovers against Oklahoma in a game that you really should have won, and then going into Tallahassee and losing to a team that's barely going to make a bowl game in Florida State by double digits. I'm not going to be outraged if Alabama gets left out of the playoffs. I'm just going to be real. But Miami fans are going to be outraged if they're left out of the playoff after beating Notre Dame head-to-head and Notre Dame gets put in. And that could cost money for TV networks. So that's the risk that you've got to weigh out here. But the other angle is we're talking about Alabama and BYU here. Conference championship games. Alabama played today. They didn't have to play. BYU played today. They didn't have to play. Miami and Notre Dame watched these games from the sidelines today, from their couches or from their facilities maybe. They didn't have to suit up and play. They didn't have to travel, nothing. They could go in tomorrow. Alabama and BYU could be punished for playing in a conference championship game and losing and getting blown out. That could have just as well happened to Notre Dame or Miami today. So that's where it gets fuzzy as well, and that's where I would be that's where I would be in favor of letting Alabama in, is because they had to play in that game. So why play the game? It's a really dicey situation here, and at the end of the day, I don't want to get too deep here because I know I'm just talking about Bama, Georgia. I don't want to get too deep here. At the end of the day, I think you're going to have to force Notre Dame to join a conference. I think that's what's going to fix all of this. Miami, I can see their argument of getting in, but I can see why people would be pissed about Notre Dame getting in. Because, like I said in that video a few weeks ago, they crafted their schedule specifically so that they get the hard games out of the way early and then coast into the rest of the season with cupcake games. They'll just roll over so that the perception will be, oh, Notre Dame's getting red hot. Alabama doesn't have that ability. Miami doesn't have that ability. BYU doesn't have that ability. And so that's, I think, the thing that has to get ironed out right now. But at the end of the day, it's going to be really fascinating to see how all of this shakes out tomorrow. And my boy Luke Close and I, we're going to be live tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. for the CFP selection show for our reactions. And then we're going to give a little preview on each of the games that will be taking place here in a few weekends. So please tune in for that. It's going to be a great show. It's been a good time. But thank you all for watching this tonight. Let me know your opinion of this game in the comments section. And let me know your opinion on if Alabama should be let into the CFP or not. As a fan, I'm torn right now. I can support them getting in. I can see why they get left out. But let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching. Have a great night. Enjoy that Indiana-Ohio State Big Ten Championship.